You're listening to the Savage Lovecast, Dan Savage's sex and relationship show for grown-ups. If you're under 18, get out of here, youngin'.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Right now I feel about hope the same way I felt about dick when I was 18. I will take it wherever I can find it. And I found hope in two unexpected places this weekend. The first place was a couple of straight cuckolding subreddits. I've been sick for weeks and I ran out of things to read. What can I say? The other was in Daniel Kolitz's absolutely stunning new feature story on Gooners in the latest edition of Harper's, a piece that went insanely viral over the weekend. All right, so let's do cuckolds first. For the new kids in class, straight cuckolding, that's a kink where a guy gets off on the idea or the reality of his girlfriend or wife cheating on him with a guy whose dick is bigger or game is better. The guy getting cheated on is the cuck. The guy who fucks his wife is the bull. Cuckolding is a really good illustration of my unified field theory of kink. They're eroticized fears. Almost all of them, almost always. Through some magical reptile-brained alchemy we do not fully understand, the fear of being cheated on becomes the kink of cuckolding. Not for everybody, of course, but for a statistically significant percentage of everybody. And it's not really cheating, of course, when the guy being quote-unquote cheated on gave permission to the woman who is quote-unquote cheating on him to fuck the guy she's quote-unquote cheating on him with. That's cheating as in exciting role play, not cheating as in unforgivable betrayal. So, what I noticed in the straight cuckolding subreddits I stumbled into over the weekend, r/cuck psychology and r/bull psychology, was a real yearning on the part of cucks and bulls, the men involved, for connection, not just sex. Now, some cucks just want bulls to materialize in their bedrooms, fuck their wives, and then dematerialize as soon as it's over. But others want to hang out. They want to talk. They want to bond with the men who are fucking their wives or bond with the men whose wives they're fucking. And I thought it was touching. It gave me a little bit of hope to find questions in these subreddits from cucks and bulls about how to make friends with each other, and encouraging stories from men who'd managed to do just that, from cucks and bulls who'd become IRL buddies who hang out, have beers, and watch sports. 1 in 5 men report not having a single male friend they can share their feelings with. So I thought, reading these subreddits, okay, here's one way for straight guys to make friends. They can share their wives and share their feelings about sharing their wives, and then maybe share other feelings about other things. Of course, sharing their wives with the enthusiastic consent of their wives. We're facing a crisis of male loneliness, a crisis that has political fallout for all of us. And if this is one way a straight guy can make a friend, we should celebrate it. Now, this approach won't work for guys who aren't cuckolds, of course, but not everything has to work for everybody. And when it comes to something as serious as the male loneliness epidemic, we can and should take an all-of-the-above approach. Whatever works. Hope was a little harder to see in Daniel Kolitz's feature story on Gooners and Harper's, the Goon Squad, loneliness, porn's next frontier, and the dream of endless masturbation. But I managed to spot it there too. There are a million takes out there already about Kolitz's piece. This piece about gooning as a subculture, or gooning as subcultures plural. And if you've read it, you no doubt have a few takes of your own. But what I noticed was the same longing for connection among the gooners Kolitz's manages to humanize in his profile that I saw among the cucks and bulls whose posts I was reading on Reddit this weekend. We think of masturbation as a solo pursuit, and hearing about gooners retreating into their goon caves to spend hours or sometimes days masturbating. Yeah, that sounds pretty isolating. But what I didn't see coming, was the ways masturbation for these men, for many of these men, has become a group activity, a hetero, bro-coded, nihilistic, and sometimes deeply misogynistic group activity, a group pursuit that connects them to other men, even as it disconnects them from the world, and any possibility of sharing their lives with an actual female romantic partner ever, which makes their misogyny a tiny bit easier to stomach since they won't be inflicting themselves on future wives or future girlfriends? What binds these disparate masturbators together, Kolitz writes, are the communal rituals surrounding the goon state. 70% of respondents to Kolitz's questionnaire, quote, claim to engage in one or more of these communal rituals. By far the most popular of these rituals is feeding, a sort of porn-mediated cybersex in which one gooner sustains another's gooning session by sending them curated porn from their own private collection. Unlike realizing a cuckold fantasy, which eventually requires you to get off the apps where cucks and their wives search for bulls and focus on the real human beings in the room in front of you or sitting in the cuck chair on the other side of the room in front of you, gooning keeps these men glued to their screens, perpetually edging themselves in a virtual pornified alternative universe. Cucks and bulls have to connect in meat space, and a meat space meetup can, as I learned, be the start of a beautiful IRL friendship. The fact that porn and their own best efforts to isolate themselves in a completely pornified universe hasn't extinguished that desire to connect, even in the gooniest gooners' Kolitz profiles, that gave me the faintest glimmer of hope. Not for these men. It's hard to imagine any of the men Kolitz profiles coming back from this, from what they've done to themselves, socially or sexually. But hope for the rest of us, if we can all just channel our urge, our desire, our need to connect in better, healthier ways. Like the cucks are doing. Okay, some big news before we get to the calls this week. After Action Report, which was a new segment we rolled out on the show, it was so much fun that we decided we wanted to do it every week as its own standalone mini podcast. You know the drill. People who've tried something new in the bedroom or in the backseat or in the dungeon or on vacation or on a dare, tell me how it went. Our first After Action Report came out last Friday. This Friday, I talked with Argo, a trans man who went to his first furry sex party. To find out how Argo's first furry sex party went, to find out what a furry sex party is all about, be sure to listen to After Action Report this Friday in your feed. All right, coming up on today's show, we have got some divorce questions, calls from the recently divorced about getting back out there, and a call from someone wondering if they should bother dating someone going through a divorce. Is that a guaranteed shit show like their friends are telling them, or should she take the risk? Also, a man wonders if he can walk around his house ethically, naked, with the curtains open, hoping somebody notices. And a caller's woke friend tells her that drag is transphobic, which isn't something the caller's trans friends ever told her. And on the Magnum this week, actor and musician Ben Palacios is here. He's one of the stars of Palm Royale, the hit Amazon show starring Kristen Wiig. Ben and I talk about kissing Ricky Martin, which Ben gets to do on Palm Royale, insulting Carol Burnett, which Ben did by accident while filming Palm Royale. We also talk about what straight guys can do to make those prostate exams more pleasurable. My conversation with Ben is on the Magnum Savage Lovecast, which you can subscribe to at savage.love. All right, let's get to the first call. This episode is sponsored by Hims, affordable access to ED treatment all online. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/savage. This episode is brought to you by Field, an app where curious people come to connect. Download Field on the App Store or Google Play and find out why so many of my listeners are already using it. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by ericalust.com, the world's leading platform for ethical cinematic adult films. Sex can be funny, it can be messy, tender, transformative. Erica Lust believes that adult films should reflect all of that. If you are looking for something to turn you on, that you can feel good about, try Erica Lust. Right now, my listeners get 45% off your subscriptions when you enter the code SAVAGE45 at ericalust.com. That's Erica Lust with a K.
Hi, I was recently talking to a very lefty woke friend. We have a relative in common that is a trans woman, and the subject of drag came up because I am a huge aficionado of drag shows. And she said, I think drag is the equivalent of a minstrel show or blackface, and it is offensive. I had never heard this position before. I looked it up and I saw that it sort of is a thing. When did this come up? Is this something that is offensive to trans women? Because I had never heard that from anyone, including our mutual trans woman relative. Let me know your thoughts, please.
All right, sure. Let's play Let's Pretend. This is what I would have done if this was a friend talking to me and saying this stuff. I would have conceded the point. All right, drag is transphobic. Now what? What do we do? What are we going to do about it? Gonna go picket the drag shows? Are we going to protest? Are we going to ban drag? No. What are you going to do about it? Except, I think what your friend, your woke friend, wanted you to do about it, which is feel bad about it, feel bad about liking drag, enjoying drag as performance or performance art or just a good time. I've heard this. I heard this in the early 2000s. There are, of course, women out there who've always argued that drag is misogynistic, that it's men in woman face, and have compared it to minstrel shows. I think drag can be transphobic or misogynistic or both, just like stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedians can be misogynistic or transphobic or both, but it doesn't mean, because you can point to some stand-up comedians who are misogynistic or transphobic, that stand-up comedy as a genre is essentially transphobic or misogynistic. I think drag is the same way. I used to do drag. It can be an homage to women and powerful women. It can also be a burlesque of not what it means to be a woman, but what it means to be a man, and about surfaces and about personae and the masculine and feminine that we all have inside us, that we choose or are socialized to emphasize one or the other, favor one or the other. And there's something liberating and transgressive about drag, especially in a culture or society that polices the boundaries between masculine and feminine. That doesn't mean that everybody out there doing drag is doing it right. That doesn't mean everybody out there doing drag is above committing, doing something transphobic or misogynistic in their act or as a part of the show. But this specific point that your friend made, that drag is transphobic, I heard this a lot in the early 2000s. What you hear now is it's misogynistic, but you used to hear that it was transphobic. Some trans activists, I think, who were new to being trans and new to activism at the time, argued that drag, which has been a part of all cultures forever, but a defining aspect of gay culture for centuries, they argued that drag was transphobic because it put it in people's heads that trans women were men in dresses, which of course trans women are not men in dresses. Trans women are women. Gay men shrugged. Trans people who knew better pushed back against this drag is transphobic argument. RuPaul's Drag Race went on to welcome its first trans contestants, and a parade of RuPaul's contestants who weren't trans when they were on the show have since come out as trans. There's always been a blurry line, and once upon a time there's a lot of camaraderie between the trans and drag communities, or trans people and drag queens. The first trans woman I ever met was a regular performer at a drag show where I was a performer. She was a woman. I was a man. We were both doing drag because drag spaces before little parts of the world on the urban archipelago where LGBTQ people are safe, drag shows, drag bars were safe places for, as they call them, clocky trans women, for trans women who didn't necessarily pass, because drag queens are interested in a lot of things, but usually not interested in blending in, usually not interested in passing. And drag spaces were safe spaces for trans women. So to argue now, for some woke scold to argue now that drag shows, the kind of drag shows that you enjoy, RuPaul's Drag Race, that there's something essentially fundamentally transphobic about it, is just to not know anything about drag or the history of trans people, spaces, or the allyship that has long existed between trans women and drag queens. Yeah, and I won't put up with it. And again, circling back, and now what? What do you do? What do you do? What's your friend going to do? Not going to stop drag. The arguments people were making 15, 20 years ago didn't stop drag. It only got bigger and bigger. Your friend wasn't trying to stop drag or even trying to stop you from going to drag shows. Your friend, woke scold, was just trying to make you feel bad about yourself, which the left needs to knock the fuck off. Go hang out with your trans friend and don't hang out with this woke scold anymore.
Hello, Dan. I am a 48-year-old woman, and I've been married for 22 years to my wonderful husband, who is 49. And throughout our 22-year marriage, we've always talked about opening up our marriage, our ability and capacity and willingness to love other people. But it's just never happened. And about in June of this year, we decided to give it a shot. We did a lot of communicating beforehand, listening to wonderful podcasts like your podcast, Multi-Amory. We read Polysecure by Jessica Fern. We're excellent communicators. We're both attorneys and we have our own law office, so we're very intertwined. And we both went on field in June, and something unexpected happened. I was able to very quickly have several sexual partners. Many months later, I have a boyfriend who I enjoy hanging out with a couple times a month. And I've had some wonderful sexual experiences that I've never had before. My husband, who is wonderful, incredibly smart, handsome, has just been unable to have any experiences. He's had no luck on the app, no luck in our community. And so we have the problem of extreme imbalance. We've spoken about it. We've worked through it to the extent we can, but I'm just wondering in those situations if you have any advice. He has not asked me to stop. I feel like I've always been a polyamorist and I feel so right in my body, and he acknowledges that and supports me. But it's very stressful that he is not having these opportunities, and I'm just wondering if you have any insight.
Actually, something expected happened, something you could have expected, should have expected, might have seen coming. If you were listening closely to my podcast and to Multi-Amory and you were doing a reading between the lines, a couple of chapters of Polysecure, yeah, it's kind of a cliche that a straight opposite sex couple opens up their marriage and the wife is swimming in dick. The wife can find all the dick she wants, can even land a secondary partner, gets a boyfriend, as you have, while the husband ain't getting anything, ain't finding anything. It's just, yeah, it's easier to find men who are down to fuck married women in open relationships, and sometimes married women in what are supposed to be monogamous relationships, than it is to find women who are interested in fucking men in open relationships or what are supposed to be monogamous relationships. Yeah, this is something that you should have seen coming because it's such a frequent occurrence that, again, it is a cliche. So your husband's not having any luck. There's an imbalance here. And it's not ruining your relationship with your boyfriend, but it's giving you some odd conflicted feelings about what you have with your boyfriend and how it's just not fair. So this extreme imbalance is really common. How do you address it? You say your husband hasn't had the same opportunities or hasn't had the same luck that you've had. Okay, well, you can engineer opportunities. I think what you do is you ask your husband if your help is something that he wants. And if it is, if he wants you to actively help him get out there in Polyland and find somebody who's interested in fucking him, go to swingers events, go to sex parties. Doesn't mean that you have to have sex with anybody else if you're not comfortable having sex in those environments. Also, just poly community events. You say you opened up in June. It's only October. It is not uncommon, I think. It is not a black swan event that your straight husband in just a few months hasn't managed to land a girlfriend in the same way that you managed to get out there and fuck and then land a boyfriend. So I wouldn't, if I were your husband, despair. And I wouldn't, if I were you, feel too tremendously guilty about your good fortune here, about his bad luck, because I don't think that he hasn't landed a girlfriend in the last few months isn't evidence of bad luck. I don't think he's cursed. There are people out there who open a relationship and it's been a year or two and they haven't found anybody while their wife is out there swimming in dick. And by people, I mean straight men. So how can you help create opportunities for him? And some clarity from him about what he wants exactly would be helpful. Does he just want some pussy? If he wants a girlfriend, okay, that means it may take a bit longer. If he's just looking to play, he may have opportunities to play, have opportunities to hook up with other women at swingers events. They're not all swap style, full swap or soft swap. It's not all at swingers events. I'll hand you mine if you hand me yours. So your husband could go to a big swingers event with you there. Most of these events don't allow single men in. But with you there on his arm, he could get in, he could meet some people. He might meet a woman who's, you say he's handsome, you say he's hot. He might meet a woman who's interested in him in person, who overlooked his, if she even saw it, his ad on Field and be down. And he might at least get to fuck somebody, fuck some other woman, fuck somebody who isn't you. And then who knows what might come of that. Also, I don't know what your husband is like, but there are cuckold couples out there that want a male, very special guest star to come in and play the bull. What turns your husband on? There's lots of different ways that he could put himself out there, market himself sexually to get laid, maybe not get a girlfriend or get a secondary partner, but to get laid. It all depends on what he wants. So help a brother out or help a husband out here, not a brother. Although at 22 years, there's that creeping siblinification, I think, in long-term relationships you have to guard against. Help a husband out. If he is miserable and upset about this disparity, see what you can do about it. And I think the most helpful thing that you can do about it is show up with him, again, to vouch for him at poly and swingers events. If he's not miserable, if he's content, if he's still out there doing the work and isn't in despair yet, then maybe nothing needs to be done. But again, circling back to my first comment, any straight couple out there that opens their relationship, that begins to explore ethical non-monogamy, she needs to brace herself for all the dick that's coming her way, and he needs to brace himself for the weight that he's likely to have for the pussy. That will eventually come his way, fingers crossed, but it's not going to be kind of opening the floodgate style like it would be for the wife. And that can be hard for husbands to watch, especially in cases where it was the husband's idea, the husband's ask to open the relationship in the first place. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Hims. Big moments deserve less stress and more confidence. When ED shows up in the bedroom, Hims helps you keep your cool and focus on what matters most, the moment, not the worry. Hims offers access to ED treatment options ranging from trusted generics that cost 95% less than brand names to hard mints if prescribed. This isn't one-size-fits-all care that forgets you in the waiting room. It's your health and goals put first, prioritized by real medical providers there to make sure you get what you need to get the results that you want and return you to feeling like your old self again. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/savage. That's HIMS.com/savage for your free online visit. Let them know the Lovecast sent you, hims.com/savage. Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information.
Hey, Dan. Mid-30s, straight cis male in a major U.S. city here. I was wondering if I could get your opinion on the ethics of walking around naked in your own home with the blinds up, so that people on the street might see you naked if they were to look into your window. I had seen a meme recently online, and the meme was aimed at women, and it said something along the lines of, "Women, it is your duty to be the hot neighbor who walks around naked with her blinds up." And I was like, yeah, more of that. But also, I kind of want to be the hot neighbor who walks around naked with his blinds up. I think I'm conventionally attractive, and it'd be exciting for me. It'd be kind of thrilling, and I wouldn't walk around aroused. I know that's totally different, but I'm hesitant to do this because maybe this is just the straight male perspective I have, but I feel like it's so much more palatable for a woman to do it than for a guy to do it. And I feel like a lot of people could be triggered by accidentally catching a sight of dong out of nowhere. I don't know. Dan, I guess I'm just asking your permission. Can I get your permission, Dan, to walk around naked in my own home with the blinds up?
You don't need my permission to walk around naked in your own home with the blinds up. And having my permission to walk around naked in your own home with the blinds up is not a legal defense if you were to get arrested walking around in your own home with the blinds up, but your dong down because you're not aroused. That has happened. It happened in Virginia famously. In 2009, a guy named Eric Williamson was drinking coffee naked in his own kitchen, and he was observed through the open blinds by a couple of neighbors, by two women who didn't want to see him and his dong having morning coffee. And he was arrested, and he was indicted, and he was convicted for the crime of being naked in his own home. Happened again in 2009. That is almost a billion years ago. But it happened again in 2018, which is a little more recent. Also happened to a guy I was dating in Seattle, but that was in 1992-ish, the BT era, before Terry era. This guy I was dating, he had an apartment faced to school. I came over one day and he had just been bailed out by a friend because he was arrested in his apartment for walking around naked in front of his giant windows that had no curtains on them. Now, it was a community college. It wasn't a preschool or a middle school, but still, yeah. So there are examples out there of people who've been arrested walking around naked in their own home. And I have an example that never made the news from my own life. It happened to a guy whose dick I sucked. That guy, he got arrested in his apartment for walking around naked. So this is not a risk-free activity. You know, I think the onus should be on people to look away, to not stare through people's open windows. And if somebody's naked in their own home, they have a right to be naked in their own home. We all walk around naked in our own homes every once in a while. And sometimes we forget to close the blinds or didn't close the blinds all the way. And you can't read someone's mind when you spot them naked in their own home. You don't know if this is an intentional act of exhibitionism, which it would be in your case. And so, yeah, I'm not giving you my permission. My permission is irrelevant. I'm just thinking right now, trying to determine whether you walking around naked in your own home, and not just incidental nudity and a right to be naked in your own home and to be comfortable in your own home and do what you want in your own home, but walking around naked in your own home because it arouses you, turns you on to think about perhaps being seen naked in your own home. Does that qualify as secret perving? And I don't know. I guess it would possibly which I of course allow. I allow for secret perving. There are a lot of things that people do moving through the world that turn them on. And so long as other people, the example I always use is someone with a foot fetish or a sneaker fetish who works at Foot Locker. So long as they're not flushed and have an obvious boner and are breathing heavy and perving on the customers or behaving inappropriately, that later they go home and whack off about all the tennis shoes they handed to hot guys that day, fine. Secret perving. Somebody sitting in a restaurant with a vibrating butt plug in, and the wife across the table has the remote, and they're zapping the remote while he's trying to place his order. So long as the waiter and other people don't realize what's going on, I will allow it. The businessman with the panties on under his business suit at the meeting, turned on by that. So long as nobody else at the meeting has a clue, fine. Secret perving. But yeah, the guy who works at Foot Locker who has a sneaker fetish, and the businessman with the panties on, and the husband with the vibrating butt plug in, nobody has to see them naked. Nobody does see them naked. Nobody knows. Nobody realizes. And I guess if somebody peeks through your window and they don't know that you're doing it on purpose, there's no way they could tell. You're not visibly aroused. You're not helicoptering your dick in front of a plate glass window with the lights on at night when it's dark outside and everybody can see in and you can't see out. Maybe that would qualify as secret perving. And again, people shouldn't be looking through other people's windows. Avert your eyes. But there are things people do in their own houses when they're home alone with the lights on that draw the eye. And if you're intentionally drawing the eye and it turns you on and you're naked, then it's not secret perving anymore. So I guess it all depends. It all depends. But again, don't need my permission to do this. And my permission is not a defense. So even if I gave it to you, won't do you any good. When the police knock at your door like they knocked at my boyfriend's door in the BT era, before Terry, in the 90s. What do you want? Not family, not friends, not society at large. What do you want? What do you want and how do you want it? Without the noise of external opinions, you have the space to find out. On the dating app field, curiosity leads the way towards intimacy with others and yourself. Desires, interests, the space to change again and again. There's room for all of it there. If you have a fantasy, say it. If you have a desire, include it in your bio. No one ever got what they wanted without asking for it. And on Field, you can ask for it. And if you ask for it, you might just get what you want. On Field, there's no need to write your profile like a job application and pretend to be what someone else wants. Within the Field community, the cultural norm is to be radically honest about who you are and what you want. And that helps you find exactly what you're looking for. They don't gatekeep connection. In an age where dating apps create hurdles to finding your people, Field is built differently. They don't try to guide your desires either. You get to be you. And you can change. On Field, who you were yesterday may not be who you are tomorrow. 62% of Field members evolve their sexuality, interests, and desires within their first year on the app. In a place where there's no pressure to be anything, who will you be? Expand your curiosity. There are 20 plus sexuality and gender identities listed on Field. In this space, you can explore who you are without judgment. See what you have in common. Know what you're looking for? Field just rolled out their Shared Desires feature that immediately shows you what you have in common with someone else. Download Field, that's F-E-E-L-D, on the App Store or Google Play and find out why so many of my listeners are already using it.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 45-year-old straight male from the Mid-Atlantic region. I've been ethnically non-monogamous and poly with my wife for about 15 years. Our marriage is still pretty strong. Not a lot of time for romance with kids in the mix, but we still have a good dynamic. She's got a great boyfriend of several years who fits in well due to him being a close friend of many years. We generally don't have more than one partner since, we prefer long-time relationships and kids make it challenging to coordinate. But I broke up with my last long-term partner this past year, and it's been about 6 years since a dating app connection resulted in anything concrete. I'm ready to try again, but I'm just not getting a lot of traction on the apps. I upgraded a couple times between Field, Hinge, Tinder, and Bumble, and just to get noticed and maybe have better search options, but good matches have been lacking. I did develop a bit of a dad bod after having kids, but I've since lost about 30 pounds, and I still consider myself pretty attractive. I don't quite look my age, but I still look like someone over 40. I'm wondering just what I can do to meet more because, I've got membership to a couple poly groups on Facebook and FetLife, despite not being into BDSM. And there's just not a lot of local meetups lately. I get that a lot of people are probably very otherwise engaged with social issues and things going on in society right now. And I understand it can be overwhelming, but I still definitely want to try to date. I've been going out on my own to shows and community events, but I always feel awkward flirting with potentially mono people in a mixed setting. I'm wondering, what type of in-person events can other poly people be found at, or just a heavier concentration of folks that it might be open to those types of dynamics?
So you're at the show, and you're a poly person, but you're assuming that you're the only poly person at the show. Might not be true. You're assuming everybody who's not at a poly event is default monogamous. And while monogamous people, of course, are the majority, they're not absolutely everybody. So being at a show and somebody flirts with you or you flirt with somebody, toss it out there ASAP right away. Monogamous people do feel wronged if somebody hides the poly ball from them, sometimes for more than a minute. Toss it out there right away that you're married, you have kids, but open relationship. Your wife has a boyfriend and you sometimes date other people. And if that person is also poly, well, Yahtzee, you'll have a Yahtzee moment. Those are always really sweet. And if they're not, and they're not interested in dating somebody or fucking somebody who is married to somebody else, they will go the fuck away. Or maybe they'll be so into you and your dad bod and you in your 40s, and daddies are really marketable hot commodities now, not just for younger gay men, but also for many women of all ages. Somebody might be monogamous or only have been in monogamous relationships and be single and down to experiment. Because we no longer live in a world where monogamous people have never heard of people in open relationships. Monogamous people, people in monogamous relationships, people in monogamous marriages who might be at the shows, or who are single who might be at the shows, who want monogamy or ideally would like to have a partner who doesn't have another partner. They've all heard of polyamory now. So you're not going to have to define the term. You're not going to have to explain why one half of it is derived from a Greek word and one half's derived from a Latin word. You can just say, I'm in an open relationship. I'm poly. Wanted to toss that out there before the third drink. And who knows? Could have a Yahtzee moment. And I would encourage you to take that approach. You say you're on all of the apps. You're on the hamster wheel of the apps. And like a lot of people on the apps these days, you're seeing less and less fewer hits, less return on the financial and investment and the investment of time, the time suck that the apps are, which is why it's always important to move on both fronts. It's important to be on the apps. I think people still find romantic partners on the apps. All the data show that people find romantic partners on the apps. Most people do. A plurality of straight people and a majority of people in same-sex relationships found their partners on the apps even still. But more and more people are getting out there into the world again, in addition to being on the apps, going places, doing things, meeting people. And you don't have to exclusively meet people in poly spaces. You can now, as a poly person, move through the regular world where you will encounter people who are not poly, but have heard of it, are conversant, and you will meet other people who are also poly, who may be moving through the world and at the same shows that you are. Good luck. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by EricaLust.com. Erica Lust invites you to explore fantasies with films that are as real as your desires. Erica Lust is redefining adult cinema, one ethical cinematic story at a time, where pleasure is personal, it's authentic, and deeply human. Every film is shot with intention, shot with integrity. Every film features real chemistry, real connection, and real orgasms. From tender encounters to daring adventures, Erica Lust gives you a safe space to see and feel your desires reflected back to you. One of the most common questions I get around here, especially from women, is how to find ethically produced erotic films that still sizzle and that you don't have to feel weird or bad about watching. Well, this is it, folks. I'm so proud that Erica Lust is a sponsor of the Lovecast, and I am so delighted to be able to offer up Erica Lust as an alternative to most of the stuff that's out there. And these films are really beautifully shot, as they should be. Right now, get 45% off your subscription with the code SAVAGE45 at ericalust.com. That's Erica with a K, ericalust.com. Use the offer code SAVAGE45.
I am currently going on a fourth date with a man that is getting divorced. He's expecting January, February. And I thought I was okay with that because I'm not looking for the one. I don't need to be in a relationship. But I'm getting warnings from everybody around me, like, don't get your heart involved and don't get attached. What do you think about being the first, and I was his first date after a 20-year marriage. What do you think? Is it too big a risk? Am I fooling myself? He says he's available. Someone told me he's wildly unavailable. What do you think?
I think if you keep dating and fucking this guy and you wind up together forever, if you wind up being his second wife and you spend many, many happy decades together, everyone in your life who warned you not to date or fuck this guy is going to forget that when you met, he was in the process of getting a divorce. But if you date this guy, if you go on a fourth or fifth or sixth date with this guy and you fuck him for a little while and it ends, as most new romantic relationships do, all of your friends are going to stand around saying, ha, told you so. Never works out. Rebound relationship, somebody just getting out of a marriage. Yeah, I warned you about that. Told you so, told you so, told you so. And that's just confirmation bias at work. There is a tremendous amount of confirmation bias at work when it comes to anything that could be classified as a rebound relationship. If it turns into something lasting, everybody forgets it was a rebound relationship. If it ends quickly, as again, most new relationships do, everybody's like, aha, yeah, told you so. Rebound relationships, they never work out. And I do think dating somebody who is literally in the process of getting a divorce, that is somebody on the rebound. But there's a lot of research now showing that our prejudices, our biases about rebound relationships aren't borne out by the facts. That is irrelevant when it comes to dating and mating. And if what you want out of dating and mating is a committed, long-term, loving, stable relationship, how soon that person that you wind up in that loving, committed, stable, long-term relationship with, how soon that person got out of their last relationship, how soon you got out of your last relationship, just isn't relevant. It's not anything that you can predict future romantic success for that relationship based on. So, do you like fucking this guy? Is he a good hang? Do you enjoy his company? You enjoy his dick? All right. Keep seeing him. And if it runs its course in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, maybe he wasn't ready, or maybe you two just weren't a match. Ignore your friends. Go get that dick.
So I'm recently off a breakup and contemplating getting back out there. My ex and I were married, but we're Gen Z, so we're chill about it. The word divorce does not feel chill. Is it important to tell people that it was a divorce, or can I just say breakup? Like, to me, divorce brings up a whole lot of red flags that breakup just doesn't. What's my obligation here? And is it actually the red flag that I think it is?
It's not every day or every week here on the Savage Lovecast that I get to use something I learned in college in Psych 101, but this is that week. This is that week I get to do this. The Holmes Raw Scale. It's a list drawn up by these two shrinks of 43 incredibly stressful events, things you might go through in the course of your life. And if too many of them pile up in a calendar year, that can contribute to illness. Shrinks have been using this list for more than 50 years. You get a certain number of points for each stressful event that you've undergone or experienced or gone through in the last year. And if your points add up to more than 300, quote and whoopee, you're in danger, girl. The number one most stressful life event, according to the Holmes Raw Scale, coming in at 100 points, death of a spouse. The second most stressful event, coming in at 73 points, divorce. Interestingly, marital reconciliation is also on the list, coming in 9th place, 45 points. So getting back together is stressful. But marriage itself, getting married in the first place, the happiest day of your life, that comes in 7th place, 50 points. Hell, or marriage, according to Holmes Raw and their scale, truly does seem to be other people, especially other people you are fool enough to marry. Anyway, as the Holmes Raw Scale recognizes, and as most people assume, divorce is rarely chill. Most people's experience, divorce is very stressful, very high conflict. Individual results may vary. Perhaps Gen Z is going to divorce in different ways with less conflict and less stress. But yeah, it's just not a chill word. And if you're out there dating, if you're getting back out there after your divorce, and you tell people that you just got divorced, they're not going to assume chill. And if you tell them it was chill and you and your ex are on really great terms and You didn't even go to court. You just settled everything amicably, as they say. The people that you want to fuck, the people that you want to date, they may think you are telling them what they want to hear, that you're just reassuring them. Because if your divorce was a stressful one, they may not want to date you. Most people, of course, aren't doing the Holmes raw math, but if you got a divorce, a mortgage, moved, went to prison, lost a parent, and got fired all in the last year, that's 298 points. So people may be, when they're thinking about dating you, considering whether you're a long-term prospect, if they're fans of the Holmes raw scale, if they took the same Psych 101 course at college that I did, they may be doing the math and figuring you're high risk, or they may just assume that you're maybe not in any risk of dropping dead. They may not be doing the Holmes raw math, but they might assume that you're on the rebound, that you're not ready yet for a serious relationship, that you must still, as most people are after a divorce, a mess, still reeling. So yeah, if your divorce was not like most other people's divorces, if you aren't a wreck, if it wasn't high conflict, if it wasn't even particularly stressful, I could see why you wouldn't want to drop the D-bomb into the conversation too soon. But that's not a ball you want to hide. You don't want to come across like a deceitful weirdo. But I do think that you could legitimately kick the can down the road a month or two. You're dating somebody. At a certain point, you will have a conversation about your romantic and sexual history, about past partners. Yeah, and then maybe then you could drop it in, preface it with, hey, I didn't want to tell you this before because everybody assumes, maybe you're familiar with this Holmes raw scale thing, everybody assumes that a divorce messes you up and is very stressful and can fucking kill you, that comes on top of a pay raise, the birth of a child, a marriage, a marital reconciliation, or a divorce. And that wasn't the case in my divorce. My divorce was Gen Z style chill. Hopefully the person that you're dating and fucking, that you hid that little ball from, hid the D-ball from, will understand why you wanted to slow roll that. Because of the assumptions people make, including the assumptions that Holmes and Raw made when they drew up their scale. All right, time for listener feedback. First up, a few comments listeners left in the comment threads about last week's show. Says JJ72, Dan, you said the fact that there is no orgasm gap in lesbian relationships shows that the orgasm gap is not about women's bodies and the idea that it's harder for them to come, and that otherwise there would be an even larger orgasm gap in lesbian relationships. I'm sorry, Dan, but logically that doesn't make sense to me, since in a lesbian relationship, both partners are women. So no matter how hard or easy it actually is for women in general to orgasm, both partners in a lesbian relationship should be affected equally by the orgasm gap. Maybe I just don't get it because I'm gay. I'm going to let By Dan Fan answer this one. The issue is that most heterosex is either focused on or exclusively PIV, and men nearly always come from PIV while women come from PIV far less often. While women usually come, By Dan Fan concludes, from the things lesbians do with each other. Yeah, and studies show they do. If one woman gets off during lesbian sex, the other woman does too. This is me now talking. This is not true of heterosexual sex, where the man almost always gets off. That's when it ends, and the woman is much less likely to get off because it requires more work. Hence an orgasm gap. For women who fuck men, he comes more often than she does, and not for women who fuck women. Another way we know homosexuality isn't a choice, because under these conditions, what woman wouldn't choose it? Finally, says Dimples and Dumples, it was great to hear about plancpills.org on the last show. I just ordered a set of their stickers to put around town. I was at church for a friend's grandmother's funeral that had a bunch of flyers about crisis pregnancy centers. If I would have had those stickers then, I would have put a few nearby. Now I have that option. Don't get caught at your friend's grandma's funeral without some need to be on pregnant stickers from Plan C Pills. Put them in your pocket, carry them around. You never know when you're going to need one. Order them now at plancpills.org/stickers. We love our commenters, and you will too. Our commenters, our community has made Savage.love the one and only place on the internet where you should always read the comments. So if you have something to say about something I said on this week's show, or you want to read what other people are saying, go to savage.love and become a part of our commenter community now. And finally, Savage Love listeners who left voicemails on our answering machine about last week's show get to have the last word about this week's show.
Hey, Dan, this is a response to episode 990 in response to the caller with scent sensitivity. I find it kind of odd that you had to say that it is weirdly controlling. As somebody that has pretty extreme scent sensitivity myself, I'm autistic, and that's just one of the things that really sets me off. I have this conversation with friends and family often, and I get backlash, and people say it's controlling or unreasonable, that I don't want them to wear cologne or perfume in my house or in my car, but I can literally smell it on a seatbelt for weeks afterwards, and I get nauseous from the smell, and it's distracting to me. And I just don't understand why someone would object to asking someone not to wear scents, but it might be okay if someone said that they wouldn't be comfortable with them smoking a cigar and then walking into their house, or a cigar and then getting in their car, or smoking a joint and then getting in a car because the smell would set them off or gross them out. It's literally the same thing for me. So to say that's weirdly controlling is kind of weird. I think it's reasonable myself.
In response to this gentleman whose wife was getting weird messages in response to her listings on Facebook Marketplace, my first thought was just like, Facebook Marketplace is notoriously full of like weirdos and strange interactions. Even if you're selling like a bicycle, it was like a cliche that that's where they hang out. So if you're listing like ladies' lingerie and footwear, it's kind of like, what did you expect? What did you think was going to happen? Why don't she just put her things on Poshmark or something? You don't have to talk to people.
This is a cishet white guy. Just wanted to jump in here with sort of the straight man perspective on the question about the 12-year age difference, the significantly older woman and the younger guy. Because your advice, God love you, was way off base. Let me weigh in from the straight guy perspective. This guy doesn't know or care. He knows she's older. This is just a young man who's caught himself a cougar. And men have been trained to never, ever, 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 ever ask if she's pregnant or ask her age. So if he's got manners, he's not going there ever, and he doesn't care. If anything, he's worried that's the day she's going to bring up the like, hey, this has been super fun, but can't help but notice you're 30 and I'm 42, or you're 35 and I'm almost 50. Yeah, that's what it was, right? 48 and 36. So no. I bet this dude knows how old she is. He can get it right within a couple of years, and it is not troubling to him at all. She is not being deceitful by not disclosing. They are both playing don't ask, don't tell, and trust me, if he is present for their exchanges and sounds like she's fully happy and satisfied, all is well. Don't force the issue. It's all good. She's not being deceitful.
And we are going to leave it there. Got a sex question for me? Got a relationship problem? At savage.love/askdan, you can record and upload your question or your comment directly onto our website. Or you can make a voice memo on your very own phone and email us your question to q@savage.love, or you can call us at 206-302-2064 and leave us a message. For the first time ever, Hump is screening in San Diego Saturday, November 1st at the Diversionary Theater. Right now you can watch the trailer, order tickets, and learn how you can get your film into the best dirty little film festival in these 50 states, the best dirty little film festival in the world, at humpfilmfest.com. Don't forget to give After Action Report a listen. You should have gotten one in your feed on Friday. You will get another one this Friday coming. And if you want to be on After Action Report, if you tried something new and have something to report, shoot us an email at q@savage.love with After Action Report in the subject line. Follow me at Blue Sky at Dan Savage. Follow me on Instagram and Threads at Dan Savage. Follow Ben Palacios on Instagram at Ben Palacios_. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and Nancy and the tech-savvy at-risk youth. We will all be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thank you for downloading.